Deadpool and Wolverine is the newest movie in the X-Men franchise, so now it's time for me to rank all 14 X-Men movies from the worst to the best. Hello everybody, my name is Jesse and welcome to my channel. Deadpool and Wolverine is the newest entry in the X-Men franchise, and it's now one of my favorite X-Men movies. Today I'm giving you my ranking of all 14 X-Men and Deadpool movies. Coming in last place for me is Dark Phoenix. This is one that was actually a really disappointing movie, especially when I first saw it back in 2019, because this was kind of the end of the actual X-Men era. I mean, since then we've had Deadpool and Wolverine, and Deadpool and Wolverine is technically the last movie, but Dark Phoenix was pretty much the end of the actual X-Men movies, and I just thought it was a very disappointing end to the saga and these characters. I think there are some good ideas in here. I like exploring Jean Grey a lot more and having her darker Phoenix side, as they refer to it, come out and be a good, like a personal threat to the other X-Men. But I think the way they executed it just doesn't sit well with me. The aliens, whatever, the side plot there that want to use the Phoenix Force to take over Earth as their new homeworld, that plot line has never worked with me. I don't like that at all. I think the villains overall are just terrible in this movie, and I think at the end of the day, this is just a really disappointing end to this franchise and these characters, and that I never go back and rewatch. Number 13 for me is X-Men Origins Wolverine, a movie that feels kind of unnecessary actually when you watch it, because this movie pretty much only shows exactly what has already been explained to us. We've had this whole story already explained to us by Logan and Professor X in the first X-Men trilogy, and so when you see these scenes, all you're really saying is, oh, that's what they were referencing, or that's when that came about, or whatever, the story that's already been explained to us. I think the first act is actually somewhat decent with him and Ryan Reynolds playing the version of Wade Wilson in this movie. But by the time you get to the second act, especially the second half of the movie, especially the third act, it's all just a complete mess. Everything they did with Deadpool is unforgivable. The CGI looks terrible, and I'm probably never going to go back to this movie. Number 12, The New Mutants. This is one that came out right in the middle of the pandemic, like September of 2020, and I remember this being one of the first movies I saw after movie theaters opened back up. And there was nobody else in the theater with us. It was me, my parents, and my uncle went and saw it, and there was nobody there, and we walked out of the theater and it was like a ghost town. All the lights were on, but I don't think I saw a single employee. So I remember this movie for that, but overall the movie itself is very forgettable and quite boring at times, honestly. I like that they tried to dive into more horror elements with this movie, but I don't care about any of the characters because I don't know them, and the movie isn't long enough or gives them enough background to understand them, and so I just never find myself going back to this one as well. Number 11, The Last X-Men, The Last Stand, the ending of the original X-Men trilogy. Now, I actually think this movie is somewhat decent. There's a big step up in quality between the last three I just mentioned and this one for me. I enjoy it when I watch it, and I actually remember watching this one quite a few times as a kid, enjoying it. I have it on DVD on my bookshelf back here of movies. I think there's some, again, with all these other movies, I think there are a lot of really great ideas in here. The idea of a mutant cure, trying to get this kid's DNA to make a mutant cure, and Magneto is still with Mystique. He's trying to make a sort of team. He's trying to recruit other mutants for some other evil plan he still has in this movie. I can't remember Kelsey Grammer as Beast is fantastic. I love the addition of him, and he's a great character. And just overall, there is some good things. They try to go into Jean Grey's darker side in this one as well, but it's really more of a side plot, and I really wish that this movie would just choose between villains. Do they want to make Magneto as the main villain or Jean Grey? And instead, this movie feels like the two are clashing on screen to try and take the number one plot. And so at the end of the day, this movie feels pretty messy and pretty forgettable. Number 10, The Wolverine. Hugh Jackman is great as always in this role. There's some decent action, I think. The third act gets a little bit messy for sure, but you can see where James Mangold was trying to go with this character, and you can see kind of his vision leading up to Logan, especially what he did with that film. And so, again, a lot of great ideas in this movie. The setting of Japan, I think, works pretty well. The train scene, I always enjoy. I think the fight between him and the bad guy on the train is entertaining, and the post-credit scene of this movie is great. But other than that, not much to it. Number 9, X-Men Apocalypse. Oscar Isaac is decent as the main villain, I think. Magneto is fantastic in this movie. He has fantastic motives. He's angry and heartbroken after losing his family, and so you can see that Michael Fassbender gives a great amount of emotion to his performance in this movie with that character. Once again, like all the younger versions of these characters are good. I like Nightcrawler. I like seeing a younger version of Cyclops and kind of where he started. Quicksilver is easily the best part of this movie. His scene of running throughout the entire mansion, saving everyone before it blows up, is always my favorite scene in this movie, and possibly one of my favorite scenes in any X-Men movie. And so I really enjoy this movie. Number 8, the one that started it all, X-Men. This is a great start to this franchise, I think. I always enjoy it when I go back to it. I like the fact that they put Rogue at more of the forefront in this movie, because in the grand scheme of most X-Men movies, Rogue is really put off to the side largely. I think she's one of the more forgotten X-Men characters, so I really like that her and Logan are both put in the kind of front of the cast of this movie. They get a lot more screen time. Patrick Stewart is, of course, amazing as Professor X, and I just really like this introduction to this world and these characters. Ian McKellen is amazing as Magneto, and I've always enjoyed him. So again, I really enjoy this movie. I think it's a great start to these characters. Number 7, X2, a better sequel on almost every level. The action is much better. We get new, exciting characters like Nightcrawler. Magneto continues to be amazing and is, I actually think, a little bit more threatening in this movie. The story is a lot better, and we just get more screen time with a lot of these characters. I think Mystique gets a little bit more screen time in this movie. Like I already said, the action is really entertaining in this movie, and so there's a lot to love with this sequel. Number 6, Deadpool 2, a fun sequel to the first one, though it's not quite as good in my opinion. I really like seeing Wade's growth throughout this movie, and kind of his story, the way he changes and becomes a better person by the end. The addition of Domino and Cable is fantastic. They both do a great job, and they really add to Deadpool in a great way. The X-Force sequence is hilarious and very entertaining. The action is arguably much better in this movie. The jokes are sometimes funnier, and so this is just a really entertaining sequel. Kicking off our top 5, X-Men First Class. I love the introduction to these younger versions of these characters. James McAvoy is great as Charles Xavier, and Michael Fassbender is amazing as Magneto. The relationship that the two build in this movie is great to see, and it's fun to really see them start off as friends and becoming enemies by the end of this movie, and Mystique joining his side. We really see how they got to where they are and how they ended up. And we just get a lot of questions in this movie answered that maybe we didn't necessarily need answered, like how Magneto got his helmet, but are still fun callbacks to see. The action is really good, and overall I just really like the vibe of this kind of prequel. Number 4, Deadpool, a fresh take on the superhero genre that completely flips the entire genre on its head. It's R-rated, which was more of a rare thing for superhero films at the time. Ryan Reynolds is the perfect casting as Deadpool, and I couldn't imagine anyone else playing that role as well as he does. Literally no one could pull off that kind of humor, I don't think. This just has everything that you love from this character that we've come to know this character for. The graphic violence, the perverse humor, just everything works in this movie. It's a simple story. Yes, the villain is sort of weak, yes, but I think the simple story works in its favor. The movie flies by, and it's just an entertaining time that I love. I think it's one of the more rewatchable comic book movies in my opinion. Number 3, X-Men Days of Future Past. This movie has some of the best action in the entire X-Men franchise. All the characters are at their prime. Michael Fassbender as Magneto is at his prime as his character. I just love everything that they did with the Sentinels and the time travel plot of an older Hugh Jackman needing to go back to the 60s to recruit a younger Charles Xavier and convince him to help him stop Magneto and Mystique, who are quickly becoming bigger versions of their villain selves. Quicksilver is a huge standout in this scene, and the time in a bottle sequence in the kitchen is maybe top 5 favorite scenes in any X-Men movie for me. I love rewatching that scene, and every time it comes on, when I rewatch this movie, I am focused 100%. Just everything in this movie is so entertaining, and it's one of the more rewatchable X-Men movies. My runner-up, Deadpool and Wolverine, the newest addition to the X-Men franchise, and this has everything that you want and love from a Deadpool movie. The addition of Wolverine is phenomenal. Hugh Jackman gives his second best performance as Logan in my eyes. He really does a great job of adding that kind of serious balance to Deadpool, whereas Deadpool is really all like he's the merc with the mouth. He's constantly cracking jokes. He's making humor of dark situations, and Logan really adds that seriousness to it and that more emotional side that really gives fantastic balance to this movie. He has a really sweet moment with Laura X-23 at a campfire where he's kind of explaining how he's broken. He let his world down. He let his friends, his fellow X-Men, down, and he feels guilty because of it, and that's why he wears the comic accurate suit to remind him of his failures and to kind of remind himself to just keep going, because that's what they would have wanted. And this movie delivers on the action, the humor, and the cameos. It's just a phenomenal send-off to this kind of Fox era of superhero movies and to this franchise as a whole. But coming in number 1 for me is Logan. This is my favorite X-Men film. This is what Wolverine should be. It's R-rated, it's dark, it's gritty, it's bloody, and this just adds so much depth to Logan and Wolverine as a character, and it's a great just end to his arc. This takes place a little bit in the future in 2029. This is an older Logan than we've seen before. His healing is not working the way that it should be. He's tired. You can tell that he can't quite fight the same way, and he can't heal the same way that he used to. And by the end of this movie, he just makes that sacrifice. He knows that he can't go on for too much longer, and so he makes that sacrifice to stop his villain clone X-24 and saves Laura and the rest of the kids. He gets her safe in the kind of safe haven in Canada. And so I just love this movie, and it's everything that I want from a version like this. So there you have it. That is my ranking of all 14 X-Men movies with Deadpool and Wolverine. Do you agree with my list? Let me know down in the comments below. What would you have changed? Let me know your list of all 14 if you want to go that far. If not, give me your top 5, top 10, whatever you want to do. And I have a lot of other content planned, so until then, like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to get to 300 subscribers before the end of the year. If you could help me get there, that would mean a lot. And keep watching movies. Goodbye.